What's going on, guys? Welcome to another edition of LaLiga Insiders. Gemma is back with us this week. Rodri, as always, and Christina Alexander with you guys. A little bit of information to break down for you. It was a weird weekend, 833 days later, there's Barcelona. Osasuna ends Madrid's perfect start. And what's new with our insiders? Will Hazard still have that smile? We'll see. And a little bit of extra time. We know that Tebas always gives us something to talk about. But let's start then with what we saw from Barcelona. Gemma, you mentioned a lot of injuries after that break and everything that happened with a lot of players, especially Araujo being out. What did you think of Barca's performance this weekend?
Well, Christina, it was a poor performance. It's true that Barcelona has probably been the European team who suffered the most the FIFA virus, especially in the back. Quite important line for Barcelona, but they managed to go through these tricky games that always the post-FIFA windows are for big teams, because they have so much international players. And also Mallorca, it's a tough stadium. I don't know how many big teams are going to be able to clinch the 3 points there, but if something does right, El Vasco Aguirre is to put this kind of teams in trouble with a very fierce defense, with a strong midfield, and the truth is that Barcelona struggles so much. It reminds me so much of last season's game there in Mallorca. The hero then, it was Luke de Jong. He's not longer at Barcelona. The hero this time was who else? Lewandowski. He's in this great streak, 6 games in a row, scoring 9 goals, top scorer. So I think that was the key of that game. Both areas, Ter Stegen being at their best, having as well records of invincibility, another clean sheet, and Robert Lewandowski. It's a game changer. So I think that's the best we can highlight from game. I was there. I was behind the goal. And I have to confess, Chris, that sometimes I was more interested in looking at my cell phone than watching the game. Sorry.
And you were there, listening to absolutely everything. So yeah, it wasn't a great match, but Gemma, as you know, your skin maybe can't be as perfect, but if you get a really, really good makeup, you can still look good. And I feel like that's what Robert Lewandowski is sometimes with Barcelona, especially in these moments. They paid a lot for him. It's very, very good makeup, at least to cover up maybe some of those tough spots now, Rodri, with Barcelona, but is it, enough to maybe sound some alarms, or could you see Barcelona staying up there for a few more weeks?
They're going to be there. For me, Mallorca game was the toughest game in La Liga so far for Xavi's side, because first of all, due to the injuries that they have at the defensive line, and secondly, because they were playing away against Mallorca, and that is never easy. We understand that the ball possession that Barca had, it was 72%, as we are seeing now in the graphics, but the reality is that Barca struggled a lot in the days before the game, and they knew that playing in Mallorca is never easy, because you didn't have enough time to prepare the game properly, and then you have to face a rival that has been more than 10 days preparing that game. And we all know how Javier Aguirre teams are very aggressive, very, they put a pressure on the rival very high, and that's why I agree with Gemma that Barca made a poor performance, but it was the toughest game for me for Barca in this La Liga beginning so far. So sometimes you have to take that Barca DNA aside and say, okay, we have to be a little bit more practical to get the points, to get the win, because if not, Real Madrid is going to take some space and some advantage to lead the race. So that's why they needed that win. They got those 3 points, and now they're the leader of the table.
Yeah, absolutely, because as you guys know, even if it's the start barely of the season, dropping points at any point in the season could be detrimental when we're talking about those last few matches. Right now, Barcelona and Madrid are tied. That's good news for Barcelona, who are number 1 at this moment. Bilbao still staying firm with those 16 points. There's Betis as well. But what did Xavi say now after this Barcelona win? He said it has been a very complicated game. These are 3 very important points, especially after the break. In games like this, you have to go for the second goal and be more ambitious. Like Rodri said, Gemma, did you see this too? Xavi kind of putting that Barcelona style, philosophy, etc. to aside to look for that second goal, those 3 points?
No, it was not a Xavi idea. Actually, we were able to speak to Xavi post-game, and he complained that about his players, that they didn't try to get to go to the second goal, and they ended up suffering. And he was some kind complaining about that, even though he was aware that it was a post FIFA window, and the players were not able to train that much, and they were tired, and so he could understand, but he was worried that his players in this kind of games against this kind of rivals, they might at some point say, okay, we're winning, let's relax a bit. I think they did that a little bit in the second half, and even though Pedri came in the second half and there were some changes, it was a tricky game for that, so many injuries and the physicality of some players. Gerard Piqué was exhausted at the end of the game, and we can understand that. It was only his second start in a La Liga game, and he's not used to play 90 minutes, so we could understand that. So Xavi was quite disappointed, but of course probably after what we're going to talk now about what happened with Real Madrid and some of the other big teams, you can some kind understand that this kind of games are really tough, especially when you are playing away from home and in such a difficult stadium, as Rodri mentioned, as is the Son Moix, the Mallorca stadium.
It's what makes La Liga magical, right? Every game you can't expect necessarily for the bigger teams to win. Anything can happen, as we saw this weekend. Now, the next 2 matches that Barcelona will have, at least Champions League midweek, and we'll see that Celta de Vigo game as well next week. But let's move on to Real Madrid, just as Gemma mentioned them as well, because speaking of riding the struggle bus, they rode that this weekend and couldn't cover it up necessarily with 3 points. What happened with Carlo Ancelotti's team? Rodri, we were talking about that Karim Benzema return.
Well, Real Madrid struggled a lot against Osasuna. I think Osasuna, a lot of people here in Madrid are saying that Osasuna parked the bus in Santiago Bernabeu, and I don't really understand that, because Real Madrid played more than 10 minutes against a 10-player team like Osasuna when David Garcia was sent off, and even you had a disallowed goal and you had a penalty that Benzema missed. I mean, Real Madrid, I think they have enough occasions and chances to win Osasuna, but the thing is that they blinded in the attacking line. When you have Vinicius, you have Rodrigo, you have Benzema, and none of them are managed to score and win the important game against Osasuna, is that something happens. First of all, because you come from an international break where all the players are kind of tired in the second half, and secondly, because as we mentioned before, in the summer window transfer, you don't have a replacement for Benzema. And this, in this kind of situations, is when you need someone else to be out there fighting against Benzema to be the starter of the team. That's why Benzema, we remember that he was going out and injured, so we understand that he didn't have the pace that he should have at this point of the La Liga. So finally, you know, when you have so many circumstances and they get together, finally you draw against Osasuna. For me, a well-deserved draw for Osasuna, because they did a really great performance in Santiago Bernabeu. And finally, you have to think about that. You have to think about your defensive problems. And apart from that, you have to be calm down, because these next 10 days are going to be key for Real Madrid, because you're going to face Shakhtar Donetsk twice in Champions League, you're going away to face Getafe, and then you're going to get Barca in the Clásico. So keep calm. If I were a Real Madrid, keep calm, and please behave and think about you have enough good team to win La Liga, but keep calm, because everyone here is like getting a little bit mad. I've heard even some criticals about Benzema's performance last night. This is getting crazy.
Come on, guys. He just came back. Not necessarily to give the guy a break, but give the guy a chance to at least come back full form. It's tough. You know, even me, if I haven't worked out in a week and I work out, that first workout, it's going to be tough, and I'm not a professional footballer. All right, that's with Karim Benzema. What did Carlo Ancelotti say? Let's check that out after this Real Madrid tie. All right, the game in general has not had a very intense rhythm. Their goal was somewhat isolated. It wasn't a good day, but we deserve to win. This team, when they don't win, they are not happy. A tie leaves us sad, but we will react soon. How much do you believe when Carlo Ancelotti says this, Gemma, that they will react soon, knowing Real Madrid's DNA?
Yes, I'm kind of sure they will do. And yeah, I agree with Ancelotti that yesterday's game is that kind of match that usually, almost always, Real Madrid wins. Not a great game, a very pragmatical match, and I don't know how they have this kind of competitive gen that they always end up getting the 3 points. It wasn't the case yesterday, and even though they were playing against 10 in the last minutes of the game, they couldn't. And of course, they show humanity for the first time this season. Let's remember the crazy way they ended last season, competing and winning absolutely everything, and they started the same. It's not easy being a defending champion. They are doing both in La Liga and the Champions League, and Karim Benzema cannot be 100% in his best form, his physicality cannot be the same as when he has been competing twice per week. He's been injured, and yes, the same as Rodri. I did something I shouldn't do, is after watching that game, I put this kind of a little yellow sport TV programs, and they, they were interviewing these upset Real Madrid fans just outside the Bernabeu, saying absolutely crazy sentences about Benzema, about Ancelotti, about the team. They were so upset. Come on, you get a draw. This is La Liga. It's not easy. You're not going to win all the games. You're not going to clinch all titles. So yeah, I think they were too much well used to win absolutely everything, and I think that can be important. You remember last year that crazy defeat against Barcelona, that 4-0. At some point wake them up, and it was useful to end up winning both La Liga and the Champions League. I think this kind of attention can be good for the team. I think the team at some point, knowing that Benzema was there, they maybe kind of relaxed and saying, okay, we have Karim. At some point we will sort this out. But Karim is human, and he even missed a penalty, and this can happen, so they have to get used. And I'm sure, Cristina, as you asked, that they will react very soon in the Champions League.
Absolutely. It's a double-edged sword that we're seeing with Real Madrid, right? With the fans, they're used to winning, they're used to maybe them not looking in great shape and still getting the result that they want. And with Karim Benzema too, they're so used to him being in such a top physical form. And Rodri, you and I talked about it. The fact that we have to see now if Vinicius can still have the challenge of not relaxing with Karim Benzema back. Like Gemma just said, Karim's here, we're good, everything's in a great place. But who's not in a great place too, and this was confirmed yesterday, what's the latest on Thibaut Courtois' injury?
The thing is that Courtois is suffering from a sciatica in the back, so that's why he's still struggling. We don't really know when he's going to go back, but for sure he's going to be for the Clásico. It's the only target that he has in mind, because he's focused on that recovery as soon as possible. Last night we could talk about that injury, and he told some people really close to ESPN that he wanted to be back for this Wednesday Champions League game against Shakhtar Donetsk, but he had to wait for this morning's test in Real Madrid training ground. Finally, after those tests, he said, okay, I'm gonna be a little bit calm down, I'm gonna try to delay my comeback, and now they are thinking about going back in the following Champions League game against Shakhtar Donetsk, because they are playing twice in a row against the Ukrainian side. So that's why maybe next week is when we see Courtois back in the squad, because he wants to be back for sure 100% against Barcelona at the Clásico, but before maybe he could reach to that second Champions League game against Shakhtar Donetsk, because the team need him, and he wants to be back as soon as possible, because he understands that Lunin is well enough, he has the level enough to be his replacement, but he wants to be there. He's one of the three most important players of Real Madrid, so that's why he wants to be back.
Yeah, I'm sure the fans are freaking out a little bit when you tell them this, the fact that he's trying to be back for the Clásico. I'm sure they're like, okay, that's not too bad for now. All right, let's move on to a little bit of our insider information. Of course, we just got some of that from Rodi with the situation with Courtois. But Gemma, I want to ask you about something that's kind of out there that maybe excites Barca fans and a possible Messi return. What does Xavi think about that?
Yeah, actually, some fans are very excited about that, and some other fans are not. There is a little bit of division. Some of them think that love story is over and it's better that it stays like that. Well, we've heard Xavi talking about that possibility, that possible Messi comeback on press conference. He always praised his former teammate, always said that it would be such a pleasure. But we have been trying for a couple of weeks to know what he says into his intimate circle, to his confident ones, the people who works with and has a closer relationship other than journalists that sometimes they tell us what something that won't be a headline or a critic or some kind of gossip. So we have been able to know that Xavi, into his intimate circle, he's very fond of that idea of Messi coming back if economically is possible. And you remember last week Barcelona's vice president Eduard Romeu, he said that of course there's no budget yet, but it would be possible because he will be joining Barcelona as a free agent, and that it would be possible. And Xavi also said something like that he believes that if Messi would have been there last season, they would have been able to win some title. And that with his new role, in PSG this year, he's playing a little bit more in the back and he's more an assistant than a killer, a finisher, that he would be so much interesting for this Barcelona. So Xavi really believes that. This, by now, Cristina, is just a pipe dream for Barcelona. And Messi won't be taking a decision. He's focused with PSG and with the World Cup, and he won't be taking a decision until 2023. But Chris, I think this story we're going to be talking about a lot about this, and we know what Xavi believes in a press conference and also in his intimate circle.
Okay, so when we're recording this, it's October 3rd. I'm going to write this down. October 3rd, 2022. If this happens, producer, I'm writing this down for you. We have to come back to this segment to talk about it. We have to remember.
If it doesn't,
we have to remember this moment because honestly, Gemma and Rodri, I think you all will agree with me. Anything can happen when it involves Messi and a pipe dream and a situation that involves his movement. Because after that happened, him leaving Barcelona, the transfer window and everything just went up in flames and was like, anything can happen now. I will never say never until I actually see the player holding the new shirt or signing an extension of a contract, etc. I don't mean to be dramatic about it, but I'm writing it down just in case. Right? So that's the situation with Messi, which would be very, very interesting to say the least. We can talk about it for hours. But let's move on to someone that we've also talked about for hours and hours, mostly because of what he hasn't been able to do. And I'm, of course, talking about Eden Hazard with Real Madrid. Of course, we know the injuries haven't let him reach his full potential, which is the reality in La Liga. What's going on with him and his future with the Merengues, Rodri?
The reality is that Ancelotti doesn't really count any on him. Even last night, when Real Madrid were struggling a lot against Osasuna, he played 0 minutes. I mean, and when you reach to this point, you think about Hazard roles will be in the future, and you'd say maybe Real Madrid wants him to be out of the team and try to send a message for the Belgian guy to look for an offer or whatever. The thing is that now the moment, after all the callings that I have with the club this morning, is that Real Madrid, if they receive an offer for Hazard in the next winter transfer window, they will be open to discuss about his future. They still have to talk about with Hazard to see what are the players' plans for the future, but at least what I've been told is that if an offer arrives in the following months to Santiago Bernabeu, Real Madrid will be open to discuss something about this, because this is becoming a problem inside the locker room, because you have a player you paid a lot of millions for, and now he's not going to play any. Because if he didn't play last night against Osasuna, when Real Madrid needed a goal, when Real Madrid needed to create some chances, he's never going to play. So that's why Real Madrid is open to discuss his future, and let's see if some offer finally arrives to Santiago Bernabeu, because in the last transfer window, past summer, they didn't receive any for Hazard. Some interest from some other clubs, but no a proper offer. So that's why Real Madrid now is monitoring his situation, and let's see what happens.
Yeah, maybe a change of scenery would be good for Eden Hazard. Maybe that change of scenery would be good as well for Real Madrid, and of course the fans, to not really have to think about that situation anymore, especially when you come in with a tag that's that big, with the millions of euros, of course, to have him still on Real Madrid. All right, let's move back a little bit to someone not who wants to leave the club or who the team wants to get rid of, but all of the opposite, now trying to conserve the gem that is Pedri with Barcelona. What are the plans surrounding him now, Gemma?
Yeah, well, it's quite a different situation that Hazard won, because we're talking about a player who is only 19 years old, and he's one of the most important midfielders of Barcelona, and we have been told that there is a special plan surrounding him. You know, in the previous seasons, maybe they some kind of make him play too much both with Barcelona and the Spanish national team. So Xavi and his staff are well aware of how important, how inspirational he is for the team. So they are taking a lot of good care of him. For example, they are counting minute by minute, and they have a special plan when there is a key game, so to protect their gem. So with Pedri, we saw it in the Liga game against Cádiz, away from home. He only played about 30 minutes. Why? Because the week after there was this key capital game against Bayern in Allianz Arena, and we saw the same in Mallorca. He trained he was warming up quite a lot. As I mentioned, I was there, and he might be warming up maybe for 20 minutes, and then he played for about 25 minutes, and trying to conserve that physicality of Pedri, knowing that he inspires so much the midfield, and knowing that Barcelona have ahead of them 11 games before the World Cup, which are 11 finals, because they have a six-pointer like El Clásico, and they are playing for their future to get into the knockout stages of the Champions League with both games against Inter and Bayern. So they are going to be doing that.
Yeah, that's crazy. You have to maintain such sharpness, not only physically, but mentally as well, thinking of that as 11 finals. And we know how Barcelona has tried to take care of Pedri, especially after that really heavy summer that he had last year, and still giving him a break and missing a few games just to get him back mentally and physically speaking. All right, on the other side, trying to recover mentally and physically speaking is Real Madrid. And we just talked about what that result was for them. We heard from Carlo Ancelotti, but how frustrated is this team, Rodri, and how can they bounce back after what happened?
Well, let's see in the following days, but they were, after Real Madrid Osasuna game, Real Madrid players were frustrated and they were disappointed by the way they behave in the pitch. So that's why they want to reset a little bit and they want to recover for next game against Shakhtar Donetsk at the Champions League. Anyway, Real Madrid locker room, they think that they struggle too much, and they consider that at this kind of games they have to be a little bit more calmed down, mostly when we're talking about strikers and any kind of attackers, like for example Rodrigo or even Vinicius. They have to be really calm down, and this is something that doesn't really bother technical staff, because Ancelotti and their assistants, they consider that these kind of youngsters, they have to learn out of games like against Osasuna, so that's why they're not really worried about this. They have to be calmed down, and then they are kind of disappointed too by the fact that they are losing that clean sheet tradition that Real Madrid always had in the past, the defensive line. But I was told this morning that they think that the fact that they had new players like Tchouaméni, like Camavinga or Valverde playing a little bit more this season, and the fact that they have Antonio Rudiger signed this summer, it affects a little bit to the defensive style that they had last season. So that's why they are not finalizing the games with a clean sheet, but they already knew this, so that's why they're still, don't worry about that, and they are like, okay, give us a little bit of time and this will be back as we were last season to try to solve this out as soon as possible.
Absolutely. It's the start of the season. They're still up there. They're tied with the first place. They were the first place, of course, for pretty much the season that we've seen so far. So of course we'll see if those fans can respect that calmness and the space that this team needs to work. Back to you, Gemma, with a little bit of Barcelona. We talked about Pedri, plans for him. What about Ansu Fati in this week?
Well, probably what Xavi and Barcelona don't want is that Pedri having to face such a difficult period of time as Ansu Fati did. So he has a very important week ahead of them, or maybe that better than important, a special week, because he enjoyed his first game starting in La Liga this weekend in Mallorca. We saw him both happy and frustrated. He originated the game that Lewandowski ended up with that goal, but we could see, especially in the second half, how he was frustrating. Why that? Because during the international break, we know that he has been working a lot, both the sprints and the dribble, because he's physically at the 100%, but he hasn't been able to recover that speed that makes him such a spectacular player before his injuries. So he has been working that, and he was expecting him being able to have more dribbles or to be able to perform a little bit better. So that's why he was frustrating. But at the very same time, we have been able to talk to people close to the player, and he's excited of being able to start and to play for 80 minutes a La Liga game, and he's going back to a special place this way, to the Giuseppe Meazza, because there, almost 3 years ago in December 2019, that brilliant kid, he was only 17-year-old and 40 days, he made history. He scored a goal for a 2-1 win of Barcelona in front of Inter Milan, and he became the youngest player to score a goal in the UEFA Champions League. So he's going back to that stadium. It's almost for sure that he won't be in the starting lineup because he played a lot of minutes, but for sure he will be enjoying some minutes. So it's a special place. He's happy to be able to be back in a start, and at some point he's frustrated as well because he needs to prove everyone that he's back and he's at his best, especially because, you know, we have a World Cup and he wants to impress Luis Enrique, both Xavi and Luis Enrique. So he has this kind of rush, and sometimes he feels frustrated because he thinks that he can do more, but at the same time he at some point agrees with that political of really preparing the minutes that he will play, so to take care of his physicality.
And if he's not at a better point, it's really not his fault, not to baby someone like Ansu Fati, but he's had season-ending injuries at such a young age. To be able to still get back and have the performances that he's had it's good that they're still keeping this in mind. And that's a good reminder for him too, Gemma, coming into such an important week and an important second half of the year, especially with the World Cup less than 50 days away. Now, on to a little bit more with Real Madrid and Benzema, because of course, a lot of fans were frustrated, like you said, Rodri, especially with Karim Benzema and the fact that he missed a penalty. But what are the plans with Madrid, with Benzema, and with penalties still?
Karim Benzema will continue to take penalties. That's the breaking news that I had this morning. So that's why I think Real Madrid want to take Benzema in a calm down side, because, you know, as we mentioned before, everyone last night after the game were kind of crazy about Real Madrid and about the strikers' job against Osasuna, because they couldn't finalize any of the second half chances that they had. We remember a disallowed goal, a penalty shoot that Benzema missed. We remember that Benzema shot it 3 times in a row against Sergio Herrera, not only in this game but in the last 2 years, and he missed the 3 of those penalties in a row against Sergio Herrera. This is something incredible and something really outstanding for Sergio Herrera, Osasuna goalkeeper. But the decision has made in Real Madrid that Benzema will continue to take those penalties, because they believe inside the locker room that he has the best quality to that kind of shoot. He has the quality, he has the experience, he's the calm down player that Real Madrid need for this kind of situation. So that's why, as long as he is self-confidence to take the penalties, he will be there. This is something that we will confirm in the next penalty that will take Real Madrid. This is something that, at least from Real Madrid's side, is something that I was told this morning. So that's why we say, and we can confirm that. But let's see in the following days, in the following games, against Shakhtar Donetsk, they're going to be playing twice against the Ukrainian side, and they're going to play Getafe before the Clásico. Let's see if Real Madrid takes any penalty, and we can confirm this intention of Real Madrid that they want Benzema to take any penalty at the...
At least what we know in general consensus. You guys won't let me lie, of course, ever on any space, but of course here on LaLiga Insiders, that if a player misses a penalty, usually the coach will still give that player a chance and not immediately take him off of that rotation, especially when we're talking about someone like Karim Benzema. All right, that's it for our insider information, but not it for us, because of course we're going to have a little bit of fun on extra time, a little bit of banter. I think banter is too light of a word when it comes to Florentino Perez and Javier Tebas. All right, what did Florentino say? He said, tennis legends like Nadal and Federer have played 40 times in 15 years. Is it boring? The NFL, with 285 games per season, exceeds the audiovisual income of the Champions League, Europa League, and 5 major European leagues, together with more than 2,000 games per year. That's what Florentino said. Here's what Tebas said. Real Madrid had the responsibility, quoting, of course, what Florentino Perez said, had the responsibility to protect football from hundreds and millions of fans. Then he confuses simplicities like comparing other cultures, the NFL, and sports, Federer and Nadal. His analysis of data and market is from a bar, literally at a bar. FP, don't protect us. I love that he calls him FP too. Gemma, what do you think of this?
That they maybe should be solving this problem into a UFC game, combat. It would be much more
fun. Throw them in the octagon.
Yeah. Yeah. And actually in that ring, there would be written in golden big letters, capital, of course, Super League, because that's what they are talking about. That's what they are fighting about. And I like the bar, what Tebas said about Florentino. I think it's funny
cheers.
Because it's true. Because it's true that the comparing, it's a little bit, you can use that in many terms, what you are interested from. So it's difficult to compare both sports. So yeah, I would recommend a UFC competition for both Florentino and Tebas, and I'm sure we will be having a lot of audience there.
I love that suggestion. Rodri, what do you suggest for these two?
I encourage them to go to a bar and get a beer, a tea, or a coffee, whatever they drink, and talk. I think if they speak to each other, it would be much easier than tweet it with all the audience saying like, or eating popcorn, like, okay, now he says this and now he's gonna reply like this. Come on, man, you're old enough to solve this.
This is like not from personal experience, guys, but this is what I've seen on social media too. When someone sees from far away that they're clearly fighting with their significant other via text because the paragraphs are like this long, guys, talk it out, because a lot of things can be lost, not in translation necessarily, but in text messages. So I really like Gemma's idea of them just fighting it out or going to a bar.
I want to be the sideline reporter for that combat, please.
Oh, yes. Yes, please. Blood, sweat, tears, a little bit of everything.
Great.
Why not?
I will claim the blood.
But here it's all smiles. And guess what? If they go to a bar, guys, at least first round is on me, and we'll be right there to report it, and we'll be right here as well to talk about it. Gemma, Rodri, always a good time with you guys. I'd like to remind our audience that they can follow you guys on Twitter for the latest La Liga information. Your Twitter handles, of course, always present here on La Liga Insiders, and La Liga is always present. Every game you can enjoy on ESPN Plus, so no excuses. Play like a champion, and we'll be back here in a few days to talk a little bit more about what to expect this coming weekend in La Liga. Gemma, Rodri, thank you.
Adiós, amigos.